About a place called Snake Road. If you follow any of the field herping forums or field herping Facebook groups, you've probably already heard of this place. But if any of my listeners don't follow those groups, Snake Road is a relatively famous place in southern Illinois where basically in the spring a lot of snakes cross the road to get down into the swamp from up in the bluffs, and conversely, in the fall, a lot of snakes are crossing from the swamps and woods around there to get back up into their hibernaculums in the bluffs. During those peak windows, it provides an excellent place where you can observe a lot of snakes relatively easily. Sometimes the snakes are literally on the road. Sometimes you have to get off the road a little bit and look a little more thoroughly, but you can, on occasion, or somewhat frequently, observe snakes on the road. Now, during the peak migration system, part of the road is closed. Basically the part of the road that goes at the base of the swamp, between the swamp and the bluff, where a lot of the snakes are crossing there, is closed. So it's fairly easy to find. If you find LaRue Pine Hills and you're there in the right season, you're going to see the road is closed, and also it's a fairly well-known location, so there's going to be people there if you're there in peak season, particularly on a weekend or something like that, which is kind of good because people can tell you maybe perhaps where they saw something interesting. People can also show you other nearby locations where some additional species might be found or might be easier to find. And additionally, it's just good to have people to have a reptile chat with while you're walking up and down the road. So don't be afraid to say hi to people. There's usually, most of the times when I've been during the weekend, there's been several people there. I've only been there a few times, actually. I think every time I've been there, though, I saw someone. Even during the week, I think I saw at least one person there. So if it sounds interesting to you and it's a place you might want to take a trip, if you look up on a map of LaRue Pine Hills, I'm not sure if it'll show up just as Snake Road. It'll be near Grand Tower, Illinois. You'll also see there's some campgrounds and things around there. There's a cypress swamp nearby. If you're from up north, it might be something of interest to you because I'm not sure how far north cypress swamps go, but presumably this is one of the northernmost cypress swamps near Herrin, Illinois. There's some other places nearby with interesting rock formations like Garden of the Gods, and quite a few things to see there if you look up the Shawnee National Forest. There's a lot of species that can be seen on the road. I have found rat snakes, rough green snakes, and all the snakes I'm going to show you in the presentation. Here, nearby, you can find additional species. The timber rattlesnake can be found there, king snakes, milk snakes, lots of different species. I have some pictures from one of the days I was there that I found, and so I wanted to share those with you. As I was walking around the leaf litter off the side of the road, you see a little broadhead skink there. He's popping his head out to look around. He's at the base of some of the rocks. When you're in the wetter areas, you can find things like these red Fs. You can find zigzag salamanders. You can find cave salamanders. You actually see these cave salamanders are beautiful species. If you're from somewhere where you're not familiar with these, you don't see these a lot. It's really worth spending a little bit of time, even though the main attraction is snakes. Looking around the crevices and stuff, you'll see quite a few of these beautiful cave salamanders. I've always really liked that species. I think they're just very pretty. The Mississippi green snake, if you're from down south, maybe the species might not mean much to you, but this is one of the more northern places you can find it. It's really, I think, about as far north as it goes, somewhere around this area. And it's an interesting species for those who are from up north and from other places where it's not as common to run into something a little bit different down there. Of course, the main thing you hear about, the main thing that Snake Road is really famous for, are the cottonmouths. This is one of 3 venomous snakes found there. You can also find the timber rattlesnake and the northern copperhead. But neither of those are as common as this. This is probably maybe even the most common snake found there. I would say probably is the most common snake found there. They're quite abundant. You can see them in the swamp. You can see them on the road. You can see numbers of them up in the cliffs too during the appropriate season. And you can see that this is a little juvenile that I have a picture of here. And they're quite colorful when they're young. They tend to darken over time, and they'll lose this juvenile pattern as they get older. But even the juveniles will do the characteristic threat display of showing you the white of the mouth, hence the name cottonmouth. I don't actually find these to be a particularly aggressive snake. They will show their mouth. I've even seen pictures of them, releasing venom into the air to try to scare people, doing a lot of things other than trying to actually envenomate someone to try to scare them off and get them to leave them alone. So if you're climbing up in the bluffs, you might want to watch where you put your hands and feet. I mean, they are fairly abundant there, as I said. But just walking up and down the road, if you see one of these and you're not familiar with venomous snakes, nothing to be concerned about. Just don't get close enough for it to actually strike you. And they're a beautiful snake, and they're an interesting species, and they'll eat a lot of different things. I've seen pictures of these eating turtles, small turtles, and just all kinds of stuff. It's impressive what they eat. And under the right conditions, the numbers they can gain. Now, up further in the north, into places like Missouri and Illinois, these guys really are reaching their northernmost limit, and where I've seen them abundantly is an area like this where there's a swamp type area with a bluff where they can really find some good hibernaculums to help them make it through the tough winters being that far north. Um, I'm not sure about in Illinois. I haven't really looked for them too much there. In Missouri, they can also be found in the Ozarks in some other areas besides those, but where I saw them abundantly was definitely in the same area. Very similar to what you see in Snake Road in Missouri too, but in both situations, generally a swamp with bluffs. I think it just provides additional protection with those bluffs and able to find really good hibernacula in there. So if you go to Snake Road in the appropriate season, you should not have any trouble finding these, photographing them. Um, if let's say you're there, it's September now. Maybe October would be a good time to go. You can, like I say, you can check the field herping forums and things and find additional information. But if you might be going through or considering a trip somewhere in the Midwest this fall, keep Snake Road in mind. Keep LaRue Pine Hills in mind. As part of your trip to the Shawnee Forest, could be an interesting place to visit. Thank you so much.